Welcome to the Daily Commercial Forum. I am your host, Sandy Moore. In recent years, Florida has seen its black bear population begin to thrive. However, as much as we may love to view black bears from afar, we do not want them living in our backyard. Today, we will talk about what is being done to keep the bears safe in their habitat and how you can stay safe if you see a black bear in your neighborhood. Our guests from the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission are Joy Hill, the Public Information Director for the Northeast Region, and Michael Orlando, the Assistant Black Bear Program Coordinator. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
I always love it when my friends from the Fish and Wildlife Conservation come because they bring props. And I think we have a big bear that's staring me down, which I'm going to have to say makes me a little nervous. The anxiety level for me is up right now. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about this bear and exactly why he came to be able to be on our table. But let's start by talking about black bears and the conservation effort that's been made over the years and where we kind of stand with that today. Can you start, Michael?
Sure. Yeah, we've had a long road with bears. We thought that they were imperiled years and years ago, and we put them on the threatened species list. We stopped all hunting in the state. And most recently, through conservation efforts like protecting roads and underpasses and stuff, we actually passed a black bear management plan recently, and the bear was delisted, so they're not a listed species anymore. So we're doing really well. We think there's around 3,500 bears or so in the state.
So obviously your efforts have paid off, or everybody's efforts have paid off with this. So tell me a little bit about some of the challenges that we still face. Obviously it has been successful, but is there still a threat to bears? I mean, is there still protection for bears in Florida?
Sure. When we passed the management plan, part of that plan includes a rule that protects bears from being killed. So a lot of people were afraid that when we delisted the bear, it would be free for all, but that's not really the case with any animal when they're delisted. So we have a rule that protects the bear, continues to protect the bear. But there are still a lot of threats to the black bear out there, and they remain the same, but through education and outreach and things like this, talking to people about bears and their behaviors and what folks can do to try to discourage the behaviors in bears they don't want, that all goes a long way in keeping the bear population healthy.
So tell us a little bit about the types of bears that you're going to find in Florida. I mean, we just talked about the black bear. What types of bears? What are the sizes?
Yeah, we only have black bears in the state.
Oh.
There are no grizzlies or polar bears in the
polar
state.
polar bears?
No, I mean in zoos and that sort of thing. And on occasion one gets loose that we have to go and take care of. But the only native species in the state is the Florida black bear. They are actually fairly large bears. Our state record is 624 pounds. We regularly get 500-pound male black bears, and our females get pretty big too, close to 250 pounds, 300 pounds. So they are an impressive species to manage, for sure.
Well, and I would say that if you walk up on a bear like that, it would be a little scary. Are they aggressive? I mean...
No, most of the time a wild black bear is going to run from you. 99% of the time, a wild black bear, all you're going to see is backside running away. And so,
I like that.
Now, when they start finding human food sources like dog food, garbage, bird seed, then their behavior changes a little bit. They become food conditioned, and they become a little more bold, and they like to be around people more often because they're finding that food source.
Well, and that sounds a lot to me like growing up in Florida, we know all about alligators. And I know the biggest rule for alligators is pretty much you don't have to worry about them as long as you don't mess with them, they're not going to mess with you. But it all has to do with feeding them. If you feed the alligators, then they get used to humans being their source of food, and then they become a danger,
right,
even more so.
Yeah, and Sandy, that's the case really with any kind of animal. I mean, think about even a stray dog out there. You try to call it, if you're a dog lover like I am, you try to call it to come over, and what does it do? They run off. Right. And so until they get used to the fact that a person isn't going to hurt them and might actually be a friend to them by providing food, that's the case with all wild animals. And bears are just no exception to that. But, like Mike was saying, we have some real issues with people allowing bears to get food that humans provide, and I don't mean humans handing them a donut, I mean just food that's out there, and they may not even think of that as being something. They may not think of that as feeding bears, and yet it really is. Bears don't know whether you're putting it out there for them or for birds or for the garbage man or who.
Yeah.
So it's not so much necessarily me saying, here, cute little bear.
Although that does happen.
It does, but not very, that's not.
But that's not as much of the threat as what you're talking about, as really even just making things available. So tell me, so let's talk about that a little bit. What do you mean by that? And I know we've, talked about this in the past on different shows, a little bit, we've hinted on this, but what do you mean? You mentioned, dog food, for example, but.
Right, dog food. Well, a lot of people will feed their dogs outside. Maybe the dog lives outside a lot, and they don't clean up after the dog's finished. They don't take away what the dog may have left. That's a bear meal right there. Cats, we have a very big problem in this state and in this part of the state with feral cats, cats that are just basically abandoned or are born in the wild. But people having the kind hearts that they are, they want to feed them and they think they're taking care of them. But that is another great source for bears. They come right in there, and
And eat the food.
And eat the food. I mean, oddly, they don't usually worry with the dogs or the cats. They'll sit right there and watch them. They just want that food. So. That's a source. Everybody likes to feed birds, myself included. But if you've got bears in your neighborhood or potential or coming in, you're going to have to pull those down because, they just take a feeder and dump it right smack in their mouths and clean up.
And the squirrels.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like 400-pound squirrels. It's hard
Right.
to feed them. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and there's one thing. I know that I had a situation where we had a cat at a place I used to live, and we fed him in the back. And one night I had a possum and a raccoon fighting over this cat food. Well, that's not as intimidating as a huge bear.
Right, but it is, we say if you have raccoon and possums in your backyard, those are kind of indicators that potentially you're going to have a bear problem. You have raccoons and possums fighting over cat food. All a bear has to do is smell it and displace the raccoon and possum, just chase them away, and then now you have a backyard bear. And so the possum and raccoon may never come back because the bear is going to dominate that cat food if you continue to put it out. So yeah, that is an issue.
So now you mentioned if you think that they're in your neighborhood, I mean, should you go ahead and just try to do preventative measures without them being in the neighborhood, or?
Well, certainly if you never see any wildlife or any indication, then at this point you don't need to change your behavior. But let me just say something. Lake County has the most bear calls to our agency of anywhere else in the state this year. By far,
It's the number one county.
It's the number one county.
Calls coming in.
Right. So we have bears here in Lake County, and we have them all over the county. Part of that is because part of the county is in the Ocala National Forest, but that's not the only areas. We've had them in Tavares, Leesburg, Fruitland Park, in the villages. They're all over. So if you live near areas that, here's a good thing. Google Earth, do a Google Earth map on your address. And look what's out beyond you. See if there's a big forest like right there. There are going to be bears. And if they're not there now, they probably will be, in the future because they're here.
Now, what exactly do bears eat? I know we talked about the dog food, but what else?
Well, normally wild bears they're like 80% vegetarian. So they're going to eat berries and nuts and acorns and everything, even just ripping the heart out of saw palmetto. They'll eat just that sort of thing. So the last 20% is mostly made up of insects. In colonizing ants and the big Bessie bugs and all kinds of juicy things.
I was just about to say bees. Hello,
yes,
Winnie the
yes,
Pooh.
they love bee larvae. As they're ripping, it's not just the honey, but they're eating the larvae as well. So those are wild bear behaviors. Now, what happens is it shifts diet when you get into urban bears, because now they're foraging a lot more on the human, provided food sources like garbage, which is the biggest part of our problem. 65% of all the calls coming into the agency are garbage related. So a lot of garbage, bird feed, cat food, and there'll be obviously wild berries and things mixed in, but the diet shifts so as they get closer to people.
And the reason is because it's so easy to get. Bears, imagine how many berries and acorns and nuts and things they have to eat to make the equivalent of a piece of pizza that's left in a box and thrown in the garbage, or a little bowl of dog food.
Right, they're trying to get around 10,000 calories a day normally, And then when we shift into the fall, they're trying to get to prepare for hibernation. They're trying to get around 30,000 calories a day. So if you can imagine, they're going to take the easiest, method of.
Well, it's kind of like humans. We know that it's healthier if we go to the grocery store and get all that food, but we go to fast food and
It's easy to drive up
Whatever's
and order
quick.
it and eat it. That's right.
So they're
You
going to
can
do the
make
same thing.
Yeah.
I know that you have some examples of how we can prevent, or things that we can use for garbage to prevent bears from getting in your garbage.
Right. So, like I said, the majority of our problems are garbage related. So we have some mechanical methods. Not just people keeping the garbage in their garage, but you can also buy these commercially made bear resistant garbage cans. Like this one. This is a 95-gallon poly cart that's bear resistant.
And it just has, it's really easy. There's a little latch in here that you just push and you open it up. And when the garbage folks come to pick it up, that's all they have to do. But the bears, because they don't have opposable thumbs, they can't figure that out. They can't.
Don't tell them how to do it.
No.
Yeah, don't
Don't
show them
show
because
'em.
they're pretty smart.
But yeah, so you have this, larger one, and then we have actually a local guy here in Central Florida who's developed this, and it requires two little clasps on either side, pretty easy to do, and then when you lift it and shut it, just like that, clasp it up, and then it's pretty much bear-proof.
And they're reinforced with metal around here that makes them bear-proof. And you know this a little better than I, but you might want to talk about how they're tested.
Oh, sure. There's a facility out in Montana called the Living with Wildlife Foundation. And what they do is they put these things in with grizzly bears, and they put some food in there, and the grizzly bears jump up and down on them and try to open them up. And if you last through the test, you're sort of certified bear-proof or bear-resistant. So these have all passed the test.
And these are really good for household garbage, and a lot of them meet the requirements of, depending on what people's waste picker-upper,
Right.
requires. They meet those requirements. And then this one.
And then this one is a screw top can. You can't put garbage in it, but we find that it works really well for dog food, livestock feed. It's a screw down top. You notice you just unscrewed it and then you screw it back down. And the bears have a really hard time, figuring out how to unscrew the thing. And it's really interesting. Some of these have already been put out in the field, out in people's houses. And they'll call us up and say, boy, I had a bear outside rolling my garbage can around my yard for about 45 minutes and eventually just stopped because it couldn't get into it. So.
Well, and it always drives me nuts too, even just in our neighborhood, when dogs get into your trash and things like that, and this would take care of that too, because then you don't have to worry about your trash being flown everywhere.
And the raccoons.
Yes.
And the more you have some of those critters in there, the higher chance that you're going to spread disease. That's a big problem with the feral cats. They can spread rabies, and the raccoons get rabies, and then you go out there and surprise them, or they get rabid and bite and attack. And so there's a lot of good reasons to lock up your garbage and not make it.
It's not just for bears. I
Yeah.
mean, it's all wildlife, from coyotes, all, bears, you name it.
Well, and the reason why you don't necessarily want the bears to, be in your trash and get your food that way really, has to do with them and their safety, right? I mean, obviously, because they become a nuisance.
Right.
So explain that process as to that, and then really what happens to a nuisance bear.
And we'll use this bear as an example. It started out where the bear smells something good. They can smell really long distances. Some scientists suggest up to 10 miles that they can smell. And he finds your garbage can, and if you continue to leave it out and he sees it as a constant food source, he'll keep coming back. And not only have we seen them where they're actually dead out in the forest and they're all, clogged up with garbage, but then the residents also have a bear in their yard. And so, there's multiple reasons, not only for the safety of the bear, but for the safety of you and your family. I mean, you don't need to have a big bear wandering out of the forest into your yard when it's really simple most times to just keep that garbage away from them. So this bear, unfortunately, found that's exactly the situation, found garbage. And then when the folks decided to finally start putting it in their house, the garbage, keeping it in their garage, he decided to rip the door off to get into the garbage. So we end up having to go out there and, deal with them lethally, and we don't want to do that.
Right.
I mean, so really it starts with the resident. There's a lot of personal responsibility involved with keeping bears.
And you have to start it right away. I mean, the first time you see a bear walk in, you know, most people's reaction is, whoa, there's a bear, and oh, I want to get a picture of it.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's kind of cool, you know, it's, you know.
Exactly, new thing.
Seen them on Facebook.
Right, but really what you really need to do is find a way to scare it away. Just make it unwelcome there, and you can yell, you can, you know, I'll tell you something really funny. I live in Summerfield, and we, you know, bears in Summerfield are just, I haven't ever seen one there. And I looked out one morning out my window, and there was a bear out there. And I honestly did one of those double take things. So my dog barked a little, and I kind of looked out, and then what? And sure enough, there was a big bear out there. And of course, just like people, I deal with this stuff all the time. But no, I had to find something. I was like, whoa! And so what do? I go running out there, and I thought, I got to get a picture. And I go back in, and he's just walking along, and I said, hey, bear! And he looked up and kind of looked at me. I said, get out of here! And he just walked off, and I tried to get a picture, but by that time he was, and I did, but it wasn't very good. Point being, even I, who preach this all the time, you know, you really want to get out there and see the bear, but try to resist that urge. There's plenty of them. Move it on.
We want you to enjoy wildlife, you know, the bear, but then there's a limit. You know, you don't want to draw them in, you know, to start. But if you see them, enjoy the experience. But then there should be a limit to when now you know to chase them away. Right. You know, we don't want bears and people to get along.
Well, you want to make them feel uncomfortable.
Exactly, and I mean, and that's some of the stuff that's on the table. That's exactly what this is
well, let's
for.
talk about that then.
There you go. Give that a. Whoa!
Wow! Yeah,
okay.
It works.
They're $1 at the dollar store.
So this is a good air horn to have around. It could also get rid of nosy neighbors that you don't want. I mean, you know, this could have lots of purposes.
I'm assuming all this stuff will work on neighbors, but
I use it on Mike when I'm shopping.
I'm thinking maybe I'll have one in my office.
But you know, yeah, you're absolutely right. We're having coyote issues as well. So this would work for coyotes. It works for bears. Any, you know, as you're walking your dog, we suggest these. If you go out, you know, in the evening, you want to get home from work, you walk your dog, carry one of these with you. Even a whistle, you know, is something.
So something that makes a lot of noise, you know. And if you didn't have one of those, maybe, you know, you could go get some like pots and pans or something, and then go buy one because you know you need
Sure, pennies in a can, or just yell. I mean, just like
clap
yell.
your hands,
because you want them to feel uncomfortable so that they don't associate this as a good place to be.
You want to assert some human dominance. I know it sounds a little silly. Oh my gosh, it's a bear, but you know, the more we yell and scream at them, the less comfortable they'll be around people.
And again, going back to just all wild, you know, for the most part, anything we have around here is afraid of people naturally. So just don't let them down.
Encourage that.
Encourage that.
Exactly.
Encourage that. Don't decide to go get them some food so that you can show the kids.
Because in the end, if you start to treat them nice, the fate of the animal is it's always going to be negative.
It's sealed, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Because they don't know how to draw
sure,
boundaries
they don't know
either.
how to,
right,
exactly
it's up to us. That's the unfortunate part. And you know, a lot of people just are very resistant to any kind of change of their behavior, and we encounter this, and a lot of people get it once we explain. Really, a lot of people don't really understand it first, and then they begin to do the right things. But there are some folks who just are very resistant, and we have to keep trying to explain, you know, again and again that eventually you're going to have to do something, because even if we do come out, get the bear, there's going to be another or more come in.
Right. So now, what else do you have? You have some other things here for the yard and
to scare them. You know, we have this is a little. It's called a critter Gitter. It's a motion-sensitive whistling device. So if you walk in front of it, it'll make this really loud screaming noise, and actually pretty effective.
That works on neighbors too.
Yeah, I would imagine.
That's
right.
Let's get everybody.
And then this is a motion-sensitive water sprinkler. And so how this works is you hook up your hose to it, and if you cross in front of it, the water will actually spray all over the place. And this is very effective on neighbors, by the way. But yeah, this in particular is really effective. If you have just bears or anything really just walking through your backyard, not really causing any problems, this will deter them from using your backyard as a pathway. In fact, we have a lot of folks who call us up to ask about seagulls. They work really well on seagulls too, keeping them off your dock and that sort of thing.
Let me make one point before you go to the next one, is that none of this stuff will really work once the bears are just ingrained in coming into your neighborhood, because they don't, they may work the first time with that, and it's like, oh, that's just an air horn. Nothing, it didn't follow up with anything.
Right.
Right,
So,
and if you're trying these things, and the bear does not leave you alone, and it's it's very persistent in the neighborhood, that's when you really need to call the agency, and we could try helping out.
So these are the kind of things you want to use ahead of time. Now, is it just if you hear that there's something maybe close, or should you already maybe try to get some of these things just to have on hand?
I think the air horn, like I said, it's $1 at the dollar store. It's a real quick, effective. Personally, I don't think these are necessary unless you just feel like you have started hearing some reports, or the garbage is being strewn around, and you kind of want to maybe try to catch that right away. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are really items that you're having bear issues already, and so this is going to start deterring them from frequenting your yard.
And then, of course, we already talked about the trash cans, getting those to try to prohibit that. And those are, and like we've said, that's really good for a lot of different purposes as well.
And we're working very hard with county governments and city governments to get these things available to people in neighborhoods. And homeowners associations are, trying to get them for their residents. They're a little obviously more costly than a regular, garbage can, but it keeps bears out, and so we're working very hard to get these things available, the garbage cans in particular, to people.
Well, and I know we're talking about really in your residence, but of course this is Florida, and we want to enjoy the outdoors. So, what kind of things, like if you're going on a hike, for example, I just recently went on a hike in the Ocala National Forest. Is this something that you would say that we should maybe carry with us, or if you're a hunter or something like that, so that you can use that in case you happen upon them, just to make sure that they really are getting scared of you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is it's small, compact. It actually the top comes off. You can actually put it in your if you're a hunter, you could put it together, and then. Of course, we're having, especially in the Ocala National Forest, we're having a lot more issues with bears taking game. So folks harvest, a deer or something, and as they show up, there's actually a bear dragging the deer away. And that happens in lots of states, but it really relatively recently in Florida, probably in the last 5 years. And then, of course, hunters that are just walking to and from their tree stands. But we're really recommending folks bear spray. It's different than the regular pepper spray that they sell, for humans, to carry in their keychain and that sort of thing. This is specifically designed for wildlife, bears, and it's extremely effective. As you will be careful, of course. But,
yes.
As
it's effective pepper spray.
What you do is if there's a bear in the area and it's coming towards you, you just pull this little thing off. Push it, you kind of shoot low towards the ground, and it fogs up.
And at the bear.
At the bear, and definitely it stops them. I mean,
beware
it's
of the
worked
wind.
in a lot of. Yeah, I mean, if the wind's
wind.
blowing hard in your face, you may want to reposition yourself if you can. But if there's a bear in front of you and you have the opportunity to use the bear spray, a lot of folks say, well, I'm carrying a gun, and that's fine, while you're hunting. But this is going to stop them. It will stop them from charging.
Well, then, and it also stops them, but it also doesn't take their life.
Well, that's true.
Especially if you're in their territory. I mean, I understand that if a bear, if you feel threatened at your home or something like that, and you have I don't know, but when you're in their territory, it kind of is nice if you don't have to kill them.
Well, I mean, to protect yourself, obviously, you take any means necessary.
Right.
However, this is more effective in the sense that you don't have to lethally hit the animal.
Right.
With a gun under a lot of pressure. I mean, I've shot, at things and I miss completely. So, but this, if you just push it out in front of you, when you do just a couple of squirts, it creates basically a wall of pepper, and the bears come through it and they stop in their tracks.
Is it a spray or like a stream?
No, it's a spray. It comes out like a fog and then sort of creates this wall of capsaicin.
We'll believe you. We're not going to try that out today. No.
Sure.
Yeah. So what should you do in a case of, you're driving in Florida? And I know, they have all these bear crossings, and of course bears can't read the sign and they cross wherever they want, but
Yeah, people have asked, why don't we move those?
I know.
No, they really haven't, but I did see
Hello.
that.
No, I have heard of that, yes. Well, anyway, but what do you do if something like that happens? You hit a bear with your car. What should you do? Just
Well, usually what happens is your car is going to be wrecked if you've hit the bear. So, you call 911 and the highway patrol or the sheriff's office comes out. Now, if you hit it and it doesn't, there isn't an accident, just you can call them anyway, and they'll get in touch with us. It's a lot easier just to hit 911, and they'll get in touch with our agency. But yeah, I mean, it's a good idea to kind of drive very conservatively in those areas, particularly at dusk and during the nighttime and early morning, where you see those signs, because that's when the bears are active.
And it's not always you hitting the bear. Sometimes the bears actually run across the road and they're not looking and they slam into the side of your car. Lots of folks say, I was just driving and I felt this great big bang on the door, and the bear actually was running across the road and slammed into the side of the car. So you may not know. But yeah, if you notice that you hit definitely take Joy's advice and call somebody about it for sure.
So that, well, I mean, I'm guessing that if the bear's injured but not hurt, they need to do something one way or another.
Right, and that's why if they can call the Fish and Wildlife Commission. We're happy for that, but they have to remember a big long number. If they call 911, those agencies are already aware that they need to get.
And they'll notify us if the bear's injured. We'll come out,
be out.
And help. Either make a decision on what needs to be done. Sure. And then of course we do also clear the bear of the area too.
Yeah. So. Right. Now we're kind of running low on time, but I know there's a big Black Bear Festival. Tell us a little bit about that, and where we can get more information on that, and then also really in general, if anybody has any questions on the things that they saw today, where they can get that information. Okay,
well, the Black Bear Festival, we've been having it for more than a dozen years now, in concert with the City of Umatilla and the U.S. Forest Service and Defenders of Wildlife. For a couple of years we've been holding it in the spring, but this year we're moving it back to the fall. So it'll be this fall, and there'll be more information out about that. And that, people can find out about that on our website, or really just do a search for Florida Black Bear Festival. And basically at the festival we try to bring a lot of information like this. We have folks like Mike give talks about bears. There are field trips out into the Ocala National Forest where we have researchers who will show a lot of different things about bear biology and what they do out there in the forest. So it's a good educational opportunity, and we're looking forward to a good festival this year.
Very good. Well, now, what's the website, so that in case somebody has questions about bears, or where they can maybe find some stuff to deter bears?
Yeah, the easiest thing is just go to www.myfwc.com/bear.
Very good.
Bear or bears?
/bear, yeah.
Bear. And you'll get right to the bear page, and we have a ton of information on there. And people can again call our office if they have a nuisance bear situation or just questions. They can call our regional office, which I'll give you the number, which is 352-732-1225. And if it's after hours, there'll be a recording that will give them our toll-free number to call.
Very good. Well, as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for bringing the props and sharing some information.
Thank you.
Thank you.